Well, on a day that it's raining in Sydney, I'm watching netballers' Instagrams while they're in Spain and Italy and Greece. Meanwhile, No Dribble is being held together with Codral coffee and cheese toasties at this time of the year. But you're a No Dribble, strap in! Welcome to No Dribble, the podcast where we talk about netball. We talk about so much more. My name's Carolyn Swindell.
I'm Liz Ellis. And joining us today.
Yeah. And I've got a Codral sponsorship. I'm so good. So good.
Oh, thank you for joining us. Catherine is on a plane with her mother to New Zealand this morning. Gordy, you are fresh off a plane. This is above and beyond the call of dribbler duty.
Oh, no, dribbler duty is very, very important. And I am just off a plane. You had to ring me to wake me up, which was good. So I did sleep well last night, but I didn't get into late last night. So, and the jet lag will hit in the next few days, I've got a feeling. But all good. Good to be back on. Oh, good to be back on home soil. When you come back from a trip and you're kind of like, oh God, you put your feet on terra firma in Australia and just like, oh, feels good. I don't know why I did, home. But I just was so grateful to be home. I think because I've been so
3 weeks you were away?
Yeah, 3 weeks and sick for half of it and still.
Yeah. Oh, Susan, I'm just glad you've sobered up from last week when we spoke to you.
Yeah, I know. Well, I don't think that happened. It didn't help, Liz. It honestly didn't help. And it's funny because that you're talking about the very last night that we went out in, it was the only night we had out, to be honest with you, because Glasgow was hectic. But we went out and Kat Tuividi, who I was commentating with, had a 4:30 a.m. cab pick or Uber pickup to go to Edinburgh Airport. And there was a point in time, in that night where you go, I've got to go home. And she literally was half a drink away from staying and going. And Nia Jones, who was a commentator that was commentating over there with TNT, a former Welsh player, like you get next to Nia and you're in all sorts. And she went to the bar, Nia, to get the drinks and Kat just did a bolt out the door. Good on her. However, unfortunately, I didn't. And so that just wasn't good night. That was bad. And I got home at 3 a.m. and I was the first.
A blocking defence for Kat.
Yeah.
Good job.
Correct. So, but then it was like a hangover of that to the next, today as well.
Here's a question for you then, just, asking for a friend. Are you better off to get onto a plane with the start of a hangover and use the next 24 hours just to get over that hangover? Is that a good use of plane time? Or should you keep yourself fresh so that you feel all the pain of the 24-hour plane journey, but you don't feel too bad at the end? Which one's better?
Yeah, for me, I got to hop on a plane not going out the night before. I cannot do it. I used to be able to. I can't anymore.
Getting on a plane with a hangover is the worst thing you can do.
The worst. Yep, the worst. And then, the temperature controls in the plane, you're never quite sure where they're going to land, and then, it goes on and on. So, no, not for me. I need to be fresh and sober. So I was lucky because I was staying on in England to do some coaching. So I only had to hop on a train at, 1 o'clock the next. Geez, I've done some train kilometres in the last 7 days. It's been crazy. But, anyhow, it was a good trip. I'm glad to be home, though. Very happy.
Yeah, did you get to catch any more other sports while you were over there, or was it just
netball?
What?
No, and it's like, it sounds so, oh God, I can't believe I did not see another sport the whole time. And yeah, I was in the precinct, where every like a lot of the big sports are, and I only had to walk like across, I don't know, from one venue to the other venues to see it. But oh God, it was so big. It was hectic. It was a lot. It was a lot. And we were a really small team covering a lot of netball, and you would have like an hour and a half break, and all I wanted to do, I found like a little quiet room inside the hydro, and I would just sneak in there and shut the door and kind of try and close my eyes or prep for the next game. And everyone sort of did that. So none of us saw another sport. So sad, isn't it?
Mm. Yeah, but sometimes that happens when you're in the middle of it and you're working and you're like, oh, I should go and see it. But you're actually there for the job. You're not there to sightsee. So you've got to actually do your job, don't you?
Oh, yeah. And I think we were talking about this before I went away, like in the first few days, I was looking at the netball court and I'm like, who the hell's that? Like some of these players that are coming through, they're new to the scene, or, I'm trying to understand which one's that. And then you can't, our commentary box, I'm not sure, we from the pictures you wouldn't know, but we were quite far back from the court. So again, I could have used binoculars to actually see the game. And so in the first few days, we were going mental in commentary, just trying to know the player changes. And so if you listen to the earlier days of commentary, anyone could listen to us. I was very descriptive about a goal attack until I realized what her actual name was, you just came up with different ways to describe until you could go, this is the player on the court. So, yeah.
Because you did every game, didn't you?
Yeah, we covered every game.
In Australia, we got the feed from Kath and Kim Green, but you still did that game for other markets,
and then
didn't you?
Every other game. So on the first day, this was brutal, right? Like day one, we were there at 7 a.m. in the morning because we had to go 30 minutes earlier just to, I guess, get our heads around a few bits and pieces. We'd had a rehearsal day the day before, but that was a bit not a waste of time, but they were still prepping the venue and like a typical rehearsal day, madness. And so we all got there a little bit early on day one, and we were in a commentary box right next door to TNT, who were another production happening that were covering the netball. And so we were in each other's spaces. So we're trying to get a bit of a rhythm sitting next to and all sharing the same space. A lot of egos in one room, let me tell you. And then from 7 a.m. in the morning, and then I hopped in, got home and got into bed at 12:15 that night. That was day one.
Oh God, you got no time to go.
And I hadn't even
else.
prepped for the next day, so I still had to get up and prep the next day. So, you just savored every minute of sleep that you could. Yeah,
yeah. And when you're thinking about having to learn all those names, having done a couple of World Cups and Commonwealth Games, the hard thing is you can do all the research you like, right, and have all the photos and the name and the description, but the photos sort of they don't give you what you need, right? You actually need to see these players. Thank God for Super Netball to be able to introduce us to a lot of these international players, but until you actually see them and you know how tall they are, what their style, that helps you recognise the player on court, because it's hard enough picking players sometimes who you do know, because from behind everyone's got the high performance ponytail hair, right? So that's hard enough as it is. But then when the first time you see them, there is just nothing like actually seeing them on court. I don't care how good the booklets are. I don't know if Channel 7 gave you the research. I mean, they employ people ahead of these things that come up with all these stats and they'll give you research. But also the problem is sometimes players, there's nothing about them online. So you don't get a photo, or you get real minimal sort of information because there's not much about them from their home league or whatever.
Yeah.
So it's so difficult. And so I know that people say, when you're a commentator, that's your job. And you do go and try and learn all the pronunciation, but it's still when you think about it, a tennis commentator, they got two players, one at each end. The ball's going to go to this person, then it's going to go to that person. In a race, you can learn, your 10. But in netball, it's so difficult because there's 14 to start with, and then it can become 20 over the course of an hour.
Yeah.
I'll tell you who I loved seeing was Kath Tetley, the coach of Scotland.
Oh.
So for anyone who doesn't know Kath, she used to be the GM of the Swifts, and she was like the hype girl. You'd go to the pre-match sort of functions, and she'd worked for Netball New South Wales. She was there when I was playing, so was there for a long time. And she left a couple of years ago to go and coach Scotland. Catherine's not here, so I figure I better just take up some
Someone
really
has
bad
to
accents.
step into the breach.
Yeah, and so I must admit, I knew her as a great sports administrator, but I did not know that she could coach. And so she's gone to Scotland and done a remarkable job with them.
Kath Tetley was honestly the heart and soul of the netball program there, because of the way that she allowed the team to embrace the opportunity, share it with the crowd, and try and hand a legacy over to young fans, Scottish fans in the crowd. And it was at the heart and soul of every interview she gave or any of the Scottish players gave. So you knew that it was something they had fundamentally spoken about. And to watch her stand there and sing the national anthem, she has Scottish heritage through her grandfather, I think it is. And to watch her sing the national anthem with the team, and then when they got close to Jamaica, I think it was Jamaica. Was it Jamaica in one of the games? Yeah. And I think they lost by 2, 45-43. And then just singing right at the very end of their tournament, even though they didn't have the best game on their playoff results, they got their best ever results. And everyone was sort of moving, and the Scottish players walked out onto the middle of the court and wrapped the flags around them, and they sang the Scottish anthem. Oh my God.
I love
Is
the
that
Flower of
Scotland?
Yeah, Flower
Flower
of
of
Scotland.
Scotland, yeah. And the whole stadium just stopped. Like, you stopped no matter where you were in the stadium to watch and listen. And they were all crying, and God. They're the stories that, we can all be upset about Australia not beating Jamaica and only getting a bronze, but I kind of go, oh, well, it is what it is. But I come back to all of the beautiful stories that don't necessarily get seen, I guess, or translated as well as they should be. Because for me, they're the games. That was the games.
I'm so relieved that Glasgow were able to step in and run a version of these games. I know it's not the whole bells and whistles that it was going to be in Victoria, but it would have just been tragic for this not to have occurred. And like I did get to see a number of other sports, and one of my favourite images is watching Rose Davies win. And now I think it was the 5,000 metres. That's not a drive. You have to run that far, apparently, very fast. And Jess Hull, the other Australian, came in just behind her, and the two biggest smiles. And Jess Hull is not like, she's not your stereotypical disappointed I've come second. She is so happy that they are there together, and it's just such a joyful moment. And these events were just extraordinary across so many different sports. Absolutely loved it.
A lot of people, funnily enough, you say that, Caroline, a lot of people that you spoke to throughout the games in the streets or whatever, and they didn't have to necessarily be netball people, because we had to walk around with our pass on everywhere. We were told to kind of do that just to make sure that
I would do that anyway, just so people knew.
You would, Caroline, let's
what's
face
that?
it.
It's my it's my lanyard.
You'd be back in Sydney still wearing it for a couple of months.
That's right. You'd have it on today. But yeah, a lot of people would just chat to you in the street or whatever on the train, and they were all so grateful that the games were on, and how sad it would be if nothing were picked up afterwards. And then there was also, was it the athletes, Patria Thomas, the former swimmer, was she?
Yep.
Yeah.
She was a chef de mission.
Yeah, her last interview at the games was really emotional when she was just talking about what a fantastic games it had been, blah, 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 this, that, and the rest of it. And then right at the end when she said, and to think that this might not have happened, and she just bursts into tears. So you can see just across so many people, like a lot of people were talking about, it's just a nightmare. It doesn't mean anything anymore. I'm telling you, if you're on the ground, it means a shitload. I'm telling you that. It means a lot to a lot of people. And it might be only the Commonwealth countries, but that's important. And you could tell by the people that were there, the way they loved it, the way they still cherished winning medals or coming seventh because they beat a country they'd never beaten before. All those things are still so valuable. And to watch the smiles on the faces of people in Glasgow when the weather was shit the whole time, it didn't make any difference. People just loved it. So, I went away going, is this the last one? I desperately don't think it will be, or hope it won't be, because it's just important. In a world that has a lot of crap going on, it's important.
That whole argument about it just being Commonwealth nation, it's such an absurd argument, because the whole point of the Olympics is it's the only one that everyone goes to. The world is littered with these regional competitions. So there's the Asian Football Cup that the Matildas played in. No one goes, it doesn't count because it's not the Women's World Cup or whatever. This is how sport works. So it's very important. And all sports are based around these things that lead up to the pinnacle of whatever their sport is. So that's sort of, I don't understand that logic of dismissing the Commonwealth Games by saying, America's not there. It's good.
Yeah, and I think for Aussies, because we do so well there, but potentially we struggle to get medals at Olympics, we almost become, I've heard a lot of Aussies make comments about, we're going to win everything. Well, good. So we should. If we're number one in the bloody Commonwealth and we end up on the top of the table, we should be celebrating it, not dissing it, tall poppy syndrome, right? So make the most of it. And again, an athlete that trained for the Commonwealth Games trained as hard as they would for the Olympic Games. It's no different. It means this, it's important. So.
Mind you, I'm reasonably at peace. If Netball USA wants to keep this build that they are obviously building momentum on, if they want to get so big that they take the Olympic gold in 2032, I'm actually okay with that. Let's just get the damn game across the whole world and get some different get as many different countries participating as we possibly can. I say that, it'd be really nice to hold the Olympics and get the gold medal as well. But I love this idea that, we've got, now if the US can come in and bring some of the US scale and money to our game,
Great.
primo. Thank
Right.
you.
I say, yeah, I couldn't agree more.
Now, we can't keep talking about your little working holiday in Glasgow. There is netball happening here. So,
Go on, Alfie. Continue.
no, we very much. I can't believe you backed up for us today, Gordy. You're a bloody legend. But we're going to take a little break and come back, and we'll have our actual netball segment. Okay, so as you know, we record on a Monday. By the time this goes to air on Wednesday, who knows what official announcements will have been made, but there are rumours flying everywhere about what is happening in Super Netball in 2027. And I am loving this. This is the greatest anticipation. It's like waiting for season 3 of The Summer I Turned Pretty, which I also hated but loved in the same way. But it's like, I need to know what's happening here. Who's going to Team Conrad? Who's going to Team Jeremiah? And we have Susan Gordian here to discuss it with us today. So that's exciting. Can we start with the biggie? The biggest one I have heard in the past week is obviously from your neck of the woods, and that is Jess Anstiss.
Yeah, Jess. Yep. So if you read social media, we're the worst club in the world. Which is, so, like, you know what? Bloody sad. And I can tell you, bloody tough. And the decisions that you have to make as a club are difficult. And like, again, I try not to read a lot of the posts, but you want to get a sense from your fans, and they're split, but the fans are disappointed, and so they should be, because you can easily gravitate and love people, and she's been a great captain, a WA kid coming through, etc. But we were always going to be in a really difficult predicament, because we're going to have the return of Sunday Ariang from ACL, and had Sunday have not done her injury, we would have been in this season, 2026 season just gone, probably a little bit defensively lopsided. And so something was going to have to give. And so we had to look at future plans, and we had to look at, I guess, the balance of the list, and also, I guess, form and data. So you don't just make a decision on one thing, but that was sort of it. So a bit disappointing to read that in the paper that, across different comments, that maybe Jess felt she wasn't informed or didn't realise. I think there'd been enough conversations warranted that her and her management would have been aware. So don't believe everything you read, everyone. But it's really difficult. And, in any given circumstances, and and I use Jess as an example, but in the coming days and weeks, you're going to be reading a lot of Jess Anstiss stories, let me tell you. And it's not to say that Jess may not turn up at another club or be capable of still playing at that level. So who knows what will happen.
Well, look at Maddie Hay last year. She didn't have a contract, did she?
Yeah.
And then was it Molly Jovic got pregnant?
Yeah.
And then Maddie Hay was given a contract with the Mavs, had a blinder of a season.
Yeah.
She's retired again now. So we'll see whether that sticks. We know from Romelda Rake and George that not every retirement is an actual retirement.
Yeah. I mean, it's... Yeah, so the Jess one's tough, but don't forget that the people that are employed and sit in chairs, we have to make tough decisions, and as much as you take the name captain away, and maybe everyone doesn't get as upset about it, but you add the word captain to it, and it seems like you're not allowed to let go of your captain. Tough decision, great person, and hopefully will still remain a good part of the club in different ways, etc. But what I can say, though, is there's a lot of movement to come, like a lot. And I'm probably saying more than I've ever known in the last 6 or 7 years. Yep. Huge.
Gordy, can I just ask you about someone like Jess, right? Some of the stuff that I read, and like it's hard when you're an administrator to read stuff, but also you look at that and you go, I love that she's so loved. I love that she's so respected and so revered, and people are upset for her. I think that, and it's fabulous. I think it's great for her to see the outpouring of support and love for her. So, but is there a way, like, as you, obviously as a club, you're thinking about the future. When do you start thinking about the future? Because one of the things that I saw, people were like, how do we celebrate her? And I think Catherine and Carolyn asked the same thing, and you, Gordy, about Bryony. Like, how do you balance that up as a club, the need for champions to be celebrated versus the need to actually go through your processes and do all the analysis you need to do and make the decision?
So
And can I just add one thing to this, Gordy, when you're responding to this? I know there were people criticising West Coast Fever, saying, well, why are you writing this beautiful post about her and now you've sacked her? And I think that is, that's really tough. Personally, I don't find it difficult to understand that the club can acknowledge her and say we appreciate her, and honestly, we wish life was different. We could have 20 players and we would keep her. But I know there was that question of, well, is it appropriate for West Coast Fever to be making these celebratory posts?
Yeah. So I will be as honest and truthful as I can in the way I respond to this. So no one circumstance is the same as the next list. It would be nice to think that there's a process that you could follow, knowing, with a coach or a player when they depart. But if you look at the circumstances of West Coast Fever, which is a team that has played in the finals more, like we're in consecutive finals more than any other list. So the kind of decisions we're making are really tough. 2 years ago, Jess played in a team where we lost the grand final by a goal. This year we played in a preliminary final. So you're kind of going, like, we've got a good list, everything's sort of on track. Are we just a couple of bad passes or 1% in shooting accuracy away from winning a premiership? Is this the team that can do that? So you're begging the question of that from round one, when you know that your list is likely to put you in finals right through. But then as you're tracking, you're always watching form lines of players. We've got data that allows us to compare every player in the league against each other and against themselves. So you can watch trends of a player going up, going down. You can also trend a player against the teams that you will have to beat in a finals campaign to see whether or not they impact or they don't. And different players do them, different players don't. So when you're taking in all that information and you're tracking it on a week-by-week basis, and you get to the point, you're about the halfway mark of the season, and you have a review, as we do as a club, and you're starting to shape some decisions there, but you do everything you can to give every single athlete the best opportunity, because the difference between playing in round 1 to round 14 versus being a finals player are two completely different things. So what you want to do is give every player the chance to be the best version of themselves and be able to perform under pressure in finals. And then you're still weighing up all that other information. So, and this isn't just a Jess situation. This is every athlete. But the most difficult part is, if you're starting to shape a decision, at what point can you sit down with a player and say, oh, look, it's unlikely that you're going to be contracted next year. The player then potentially drops off and you're going into finals. It's a tough conversation to have. And it would have been the same with Bryony. Oh, Bryony, we're going to tell you this here, if by chance, but Swifts are going into finals. I know that wasn't the case, but this is the thing that you've got to weigh up. And so all you can do is be honest with your athletes and your staff as you go along. And I would imagine no club would be any different in the fact that they all have their individual athlete program plans where athletes know what it is they're trying to achieve, and that's coaching staff are meeting with those athletes on an individual basis, X number of times a year, reflecting back on that information and that data, and making sure they're very, very aware of where they're tracking. And then ideally, you try and have the conversation at the most appropriate time. And for us, that was as soon as the preliminary final was over. But prior to that, with Jess, there was enough information there that would have allowed her to know that there were no guarantees of her remaining with West Coast Fever moving forward, but we had not finalised that decision. And as soon as the preliminary final was over and we were in a position to make the necessary decisions, then we made them and then we informed it.
Yeah. That's great.
So, and that's, what can you do? Like, that's It's tough.
hard.
And going on about her playing 149 games, we're not in the business of allowing a player to stay on for a year so they can hit their 150. As nice as that would have been, it's not in the job specs. And if you sit in the seat of a list management team and those having to make tough decisions, that's not the information you share on the table. That's the
Would I be right in assuming that the club would prefer to keep the players if that's the best? Look, I can't see Tanya Obst is going to be going, shit, I need to make wholesale changes here. Like if I'm Tanya Obst, I'm going, I want to try to lock everyone down. So you're always going to start with the presumption that we would much rather keep our existing players for if that's the best option on court, I would assume.
No, and so, I've said this a number of times on the Dribble. Stability is really important. Stability gives you success. And that's something that, I can personally tell you at Fever, if you look at our list historically, we've had very, very good stability. So stability is important. And you try to spend time building, I guess, like longevity into your list. And so every time you're making a decision either to release or a player chooses to leave, and let's be honest, it's the same. When a player chooses to leave, it's as tough on them to have to turn around to a club and go, I'm leaving, as it is for the club to say to a player, no longer. So it's a really difficult scenario. So again, if we had a list of 12, I think we'd be holding Jess because there are a lot of parts of Jess that we would love to hold on to. There's no two ways about it. It's just not the case that we've been able to do that. We only have a list of 10, and the 11th player still has rules that sit around it that limit us. And again, I'll say this here, those rules that sit on the 11th player make it very difficult for clubs because those rules limit you to what you can and can't do. So, Jess Anstiss would likely be playing for Fever if the 11th player position had different rules around it, but it doesn't. So, the circumstances are just that. But
so those rules are, so the 11th player has to be somewhat early career, I think. Is that right? There's a limit.
26 and under, I can't remember, hasn't played more than
and hasn't had like a full-time contract or something like that.
26 and under hasn't played more than 5 games, returning from injury or pregnancy, and able to play for Australia.
Yeah, so that's quite a lot of
well, I don't have a problem with it, able to play for Australia. I like that, but the rest of it is basically saying to the clubs that let's say for example your list is already fundamentally 26 and under, then you're telling me and go and take another 26 and under athlete. Like it's assuming that those rules other than play for Australia, which, I think given the current state of, imports in the game is a really good thing for us to hold on to until we can either increase number of teams or increase list sizes. But you're assuming that by stating a 26 and under that it equates to something. What does it equate to? I don't understand what it equates to. Lists should be built accordingly. Just tell me if they've got to play for Australia, so be it. I'll make sure that within the list there is someone that can play for Australia. Like it for me, it's never made sense from the day dot. We've fought it as a club, but it still lands. So, but anyhow, that's it. What I was going to say though is just to say before about Liz, when you asked the question, just keep in mind over the coming period, Dribble, is when you start hearing the news of people moving and whatnot, like there is so much that the fans don't see that happens behind the scenes. And like the training environment is really significant information that clubs have to take into consideration around list management as well. It's not just game day. So you're looking at the ability of a player to maintain standards over a period of time, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So there's a lot of that. And I know I'm very aware of a lot of movement. I'm not saying from FEMA happening from other clubs. It's going to make fans get really upset and angry, and that's great too. But just be mindful that it's impossible to share every bit of information with everyone, because if I shared some of the stuff with people out there, they wouldn't understand it because it's not their world, or it's not.
It's your expertise.
That's
right.
It's not their expertise. So it's really difficult to paint as good a picture as you can. But I guess what we tried to do at FIBA was paint the picture for Jess to say, you're a legend, mate. You've been terrific. Tough day at the office for all of us, but we're not forgetting everything that she's given as a West Australian athlete, and we hope she goes on and plays. We desperately do.
Hey, I thought, you know how we had the first week where clubs could sign their own players, and then we're now into the week where clubs can sign players from other clubs or internationals. I thought we'd see some announcements last week as clubs sign their own players.
It's been a very difficult week to be on Instagram.
It's been so difficult. And I've drifted into places I shouldn't drift into, frankly, that have nothing to do with netball.
Just looking at the articles.
Just looking at the articles, just looking at the lists, just looking at the videos.
Isn't it the 14th of August or the 16th of August?
2 weeks for your own and then it's up for the others.
Oh,
but
yes.
even so with that, I just think that there's a lot going on that's like, I think historically clubs have probably signed their own list quicker than they are this time around.
Ooh. And do you think then, Gordy, that signing or not signing your own club players would influence the conversations they're having in the next round with?
Yeah.
Oh man.
And also too, and I tell you what, like it would be the best documentary.
It would, wouldn't it? Yeah, 100%.
Amazing.
But I actually suggested this to somebody who was a general manager, and they just about had a conniption, and I thought, maybe I won't.
It would be great for the sport if we could all agree to do it, but it is pretty brutal, right?
Yeah.
And so what often happens, and is definitely happening as we speak at the moment, is the domino effect. And so there is a huge amount of conversations in place, but they're all reliant on this one thing happening. And when
that's right. And if that doesn't happen, then you've got to pivot
everything
to
else
plan
has
B.
this knock-on effect. Yeah. And so there's a couple of those scenarios in play at the moment, which will potentially this week, so will be Wednesday when people hear this, so probably this week will start a knock-on effect. And so you're kind of hamstrung. A lot of clubs will be hamstrung in these one or two domino effects. Fascinating. And they've got probably 4 or 5 circumstances off the back of them. So then you go boom, 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 like it happens really quickly. And so, yeah, I think that's probably connected to the reason why clubs are a little waylaid. And then, everyone some different clubs like to announce different ways or want to be confident that they can get their full list together before they.
Yeah, or announce the defence end and the mid-court and the shooters or the whole list at once.
Yeah.
Oh, my God, so stressful. Who'd be a head coach and a list manager, hey?
Yeah. I've been checking in on our new general manager just to see how she's going. So it's tough. It's really tough. Even if you're maintaining lists or, it's still, there's players still going, they tell you they're staying, but their managers are off conversing. And then I say this time and time again, and then there are some managers that are just over the top. Like, I don't think at all healthy or good for the game. So, and then there are some managers that are brilliant.
Well, what I'm hoping is that a lot of dickheads on the internet who like to take a particular personal dislike to one player and recognizing they've never met that person or whatever, and then that player might end up at their club. And I would hope that they are big enough to go on the internet and then express how bad they feel about having made that comment. I'm certain that they won't, but there are a few people who've been making comments over the past year who might get sucked in from me. Or what do you think now?
Well, let me confirm with you, Carolyn. I don't know if you and I have been reading the same dickhead comments, but there are a few dickheads.
Oh, there's plenty of them out there. You can find
Let me tell you, there are a few dickheads that are about to get those exact players at their club. As I'm reading some of the commentary, I'm sitting there going, "Oh, you idiot!"
Yeah.
No, watch out, because it's about to happen.
Oh, funny,
isn't it?
It's our weekly reminder to be nice on the internet as you are in real life. We will take a little break and come back and hear about Liz's social life. Well, Gordy, love having you here. Thank you very much. I've got many rumours I would like to ask you to confirm or deny, but I know you won't. So we'll move on and we'll talk about something else. We'll talk about Lady Elizabeth's been very cultured this week.
I have been very cultured. Well, let me start, though, with the clip that you put up, Carolyn, on the interwebs, on the socials last week about our conversation about Sophie Dwyer. It might very well be our most viewed clip, and it kept popping up on my feed because people had liked it or commented on it, and I kept looking and going, I can't believe our most popular clip was when I had been fencing with my husband. I've got scratches all over my arms. I've got a shitty farm shirt on and a shitty hat. So I thought at least that I'd look at least like I started to care about myself, but really that all fell by the wayside. I've been...
You look lovely.
Yeah, thanks.
Actually, our most popular clip was the one where we're talking about me using a water pistol and my babies in the car.
That is true.
But
Yeah.
I don't think that reflects well. But yeah, this one. But also, again, you know, just on what we were talking about then, a number of people go, we shouldn't even be talking about this. And I know their intention is good. What they're saying is Sophie's not responsible for what happened with the diamonds. But that was the whole point of the clip anyway.
Yes, anyway.
Moving on.
So this week
Lady culture.
I've gone from fencing. Last week I went from fencing on Monday to Friday night. I went to the premiere at the Opera House of The Drover's Wife. Now, The Drover's Wife is an opera that is based on the movie, which was written by Leah Purcell. And Leah Purcell has directed The Drover's Wife opera. What is Leah Purcell's link to netball, you ask? She's a defender. Like, really? If you're going to be smart and talented, you're probably going to be a defender. She loves netty and comes to a lot of games. So lots of Sydney fans in particular might have seen her out at games over the years. And so I got invited along and I took my daughter and the Governor-General was there. So, I was laughing with Evelyn that she was at school at Lismore on Thursday and then on Friday night she was standing in a function room drinking sparkling water while her mother had a go at the free champagne. And it was the Sydney's cultural elite was there. It was great fun. But the opera itself, so I'm not an opera aficionado by any means. I've only been to one other opera before that a cousin of mine dragged me along to. And I didn't understand. The Drover's Wife is fantastic, very confronting, some very adult themes, but it's the old Henry Lawson story that's been reimagined from the drover's wife, like the woman's point of view. And the opera has some really fascinating and awesome sort of cultural references and First Nations sort of themes running through it. So it's a real First Nations story based on a story that was written by a white bloke, a couple hundred years ago. So it was just fabulous. And when I went to the opera previously, I really struggled because I couldn't understand anything. And now I'm old, I even struggle to understand more. But they had a screen where all the lyrics appeared, so I could read and and watch it as well. But it was amazing. It was such a beautifully told story, and it was set in the high country of New South Wales and Victoria, up around Snowy River. So it was an area that we'd been to as a family, and we loved it. And I kept checking into Evelyn saying, "Are you okay?" She's like, "Yep, loved it." So it was such a great story. So No Dribble recommends, if you get the opportunity to go along to the Opera House. It's played in Brisbane. I don't know if it'll go anywhere else around the country. I suspect it'll end up in Melbourne. It is a great story, and it's so thought-provoking. I've just been turning it over in my mind the whole weekend. So, yeah, go and see The Drover's Wife.
Leah Purcell that was in the series High Country. Was it High Country?
Yeah.
And so I interviewed her in the grand final 2 years ago, I'm pretty sure.
That's right. You would have, yeah.
Yeah,
she loves her netball. Loves it.
She wrote it.
She wrote there's a novel, so she wrote the novel and the film, and then she directed the opera. But I think just hit my level of knowledge. I don't think she might have written. She was involved in the writing, but I think some opera person, music person, wrote the score and all that sort of stuff. So yeah, she's deeply involved, and it's just fantastic. And I think 12 of the 15 cast were First Nations people, so you don't that's something you don't get to see in opera. It was great. It was really good.
If you don't know Leah Purcell, there is the ABC has their conversation hour, and there was a great interview with Leah Purcell, and I think it was Sarah Konoski, but it could have been Richard Feidler. But anyway, she talked in that about how she came back to netball after she came out of an abusive relationship and her mother died in sort of fairly quick succession. She had a couple of these very traumatic life things happen, and she went back to netball and really found her joy in that, and it really helped her to kind of re-establish her creative momentum and the like. So it's very, very worth listening to if you can dig that one out there. So there's another No Dribble recommends.
Oh, look at us go.
And there's also a great book that came out a couple of years ago called The Story Thief by Kira Geddes, Geddes, which is based on the drover's wife, and it's the imagining of someone saying that the young woman who is the protagonist of the story saying, I think that Henry Lawson stole this story from my family's real life experience. So that's a really good read. It's it's entirely fiction, but it's a great story if you want to read anything around that time. And there's an amazing part in there about Henry Lawson's funeral in Sydney, which was, and I think he's buried in a cemetery sort of somewhere around Bondi there, you know, that one high up on the hill there. And
Clovelly.
Yeah. And that's thousands of people descending upon it to see his body taken past. So that one's called The Story Thief. So very cultured from No Dribble today. So
very cultured.
Have you been to an opera, Carol?
I've been to a couple, and I used to work at QPAC, the Queensland Performing Arts Centre, while I was at university, which was great because you would do your job and then we had to kind of stand in the theatre. And so I watched a number of operas that way. All I can say, very dramatic. You know, one failed love affair, take your own life. I think one failed love affair, go out with your friends to the Paddo Tavern and order some tequila slammers.
Yeah, and then go and play netball the next day with your mates, with your
Or
tribe.
get on a long-haul flight.
Yeah. Correct.
Have you been to an opera?
No, I've never been. And given the whole calisthenics background and everything like that, I thought maybe I might have floated past one in my time, but no, I actually haven't. No.
Maybe it should be Calisthenics the Opera.
Calisthenics the Opera.
I would go and see that in a heartbeat.
Calisthenics Victoria have reached out to me to ask if I'd be an ambassador for them. Calisthenics. Wow, because
I love that.
just to acknowledge
manifesting.
it's like
I think there's a business idea, right, of you marrying up netball and calisthenics.
Gee,
and
I can
taking it
imagine being
somewhere.
an ambassador for Calisthenics Victoria is a very lucrative. You'll be living in Peppermint Grove soon, won't you?
I know. I'd be nice for my mother. I've just to acknowledge whoever it is that sent it to me. I quickly looked at it when I was on the plane last night, but I haven't got back to it, which I will. But yeah, no, I haven't been to an opera, and I've only seen like little bits on TV and, you know, when it's part of a show, movie, whatever. And same, I'm just a bit like, I think I could go to the ballet. I haven't even been to the ballet. I just don't know about it. Right?
There is, they have opera on the harbour here, and then you sit there down near Mrs. Macquarie's chair in the Botanical Gardens. The Opera House is in the backdrop there, and they have a stage. And we went and I've seen a couple of those, but I saw one that was Turandot. And you know that Nessun Dorma song? You would have heard that in advertising. Remember the three tenors? You do. So it's that one. So there's a lot of the music that you would actually recognise, but it's not. Yeah, I'm also not an aficionado, but I have been able to enjoy it from time to time.
Well, I will say the Drover's Wife is a very accessible opera. Like you don't go there going, I don't know what just happened. Everyone just sang in Italian. You go there and you go, oh, there was a story. I understood it. I could see it. I could see the lyrics. I know exactly what happened.
Yeah, that's good. That's me.
I reckon, Sue Gordian, you would have done a bit of Boom Crash opera in your time.
Yeah. I wish I who's the lead singer of Boom Crash Opera?
Yes.
That was so long ago.
I got confused for a second then. I was thinking of John Stevens because I was going to say I would have been happy to do a bit of John Stevens as well. But anyhow.
No, he was Noiseworks, wasn't he?
Oh, Noise.
Yeah, but
I would have liked him. Yeah,
He did an acoustic set at the launch of the Lane Beachley Foundation, the lunch here in Sydney. Were you at that one, Liz? That
was years ago. Yeah,
it was, and there were a lot of the women in the room just gripping the table, thinking, "I've got to keep my shit together here." When John Stevens was up there singing and doing this acoustic set, it was magnificent.
Let me tell you a quick little ironic story about John Stevenson. I was in Qantas Club with Mel McLaughlin. Mel, who just did Com Gay and Said, and she used to work on the netball with us. Two of us were sitting there after doing a netball game, having a chat, and we were talking about him. And we were like, isn't he like the best looking front man? And he literally walked into the club and sat next to us.
You are manifesting. Sue Gordian makes things happen.
Yeah, I couldn't believe it. And we were just like, that is awkward, but not awkward, if you know what I mean. Yeah, how bizarre is that?
Well, on that eerie note, we're going to have to wrap for the day. We will be back again on Friday, and Sue Gordian will be joining us again for Friday's episode. I have no doubt there will be other things that she can tell us about where she has controlled the universe with her mind, because that is how spectacular Sue Gordian is. But that's all we've got time for. I'm Carolyn Svendel.
I'm Liz Ellis.
I'm Sue Gordian.
Bye.
Bye.